2 years after Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. War Department announced it was forming an all-Nisei combat team and was looking for volunteers. Before then, Japanese Americans had been classified as 4C, enemy aliens, and unable to enlist.
The government put out a call for 4,500 men. It asked for 3,000 from the mainland, 1,500 from Hawaii. Well, nearly 10,000 from Hawaii stepped forward to serve, and my father was one of them. And he told me later that many of his friends wept. They wept when they were rejected from serving because they wanted to serve so badly.
They were determined to prove their loyalty. On February 1st, 1943, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team was activated. Future U.S. Senator Daniel Inouye would become its most famous member.
On the eve of Dan Inouye's departure for training, his father said to him, as I imagine many Nisei fathers said to their sons as they were about to go off to war, something like, "This country has been good to us. This is our country now. Live if you can, die if you must, but never bring shame to the family and to the country." And I think that drove many of these men to do what they did, both on the battlefield and off.
While training at Camp Shelby in Mississippi, it became apparent the Hawaii-born Nisei did not get along with the mainland Japanese, thinking they were arrogant and not friendly. Lin's father was among those who became more understanding after seeing firsthand how people of Japanese descent had to live in internment camps.
He decided to pay a visit to a camp in Rower, Arkansas. They had no idea what the camp was about. But as they approached the camp, they could see the barbed wire, and they could see the armed guards, and they began to realize that this was not a camp where you go and socialize. It was a moment of awareness for him, and he said that ever since that time, he was able to get along a whole lot better with his fellow soldiers from the mainland.
A year before the 442nd was organized, a group of former Hawaii National Guardsmen had formed the 100th Infantry Battalion, also known as the 1 Puka Puka. It would see heavy combat in several campaigns in Italy before joining the 442nd in June of 1944. The regiment would live up to its motto, "Go for broke," as it put everything it had onto the battlefield.
This was the famous and unique battalion composed of Americans of Japanese ancestry, volunteers all. They were fighting, as they had fought in Italy, to prove their loyalty to their American homeland.
The 442nd became best known for its courageous rescue of the lost Texas Battalion in eastern France in October of 1944.
Adding another chapter to their record, these American-born troops of Japanese ancestry received decorations from General Dahlquist for their work in rescuing their comrades in arms.
But after 5 days of brutal combat, they were finally able to break the lines and rescue those 200 soldiers. But the cost of that was very high. There were over 400 Nisei soldiers lost or wounded to save the 200.
The 442nd would become the most decorated combat unit in U.S. Army history for its size and length of service, with more than 9,400 Purple Hearts, 4,000 Bronze Stars, and 21 Medals of Honor. They would draw this praise from President Harry Truman.
You fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you've won. Keep up that fight, and we'll continue to win.
Returning from 3 years of war service in Italy and France, the 442nd Combat Team receives a rousing welcome at New York.
The war's end was the start of a new chapter for the 442nd.
When these veterans returned to Hawaii, they said, we have shed our blood on the battlefield, and we have proven our loyalty, and we're no longer willing to go back to plantation life, and we're no longer willing to be second-class citizens. So many of them used the GI Bill to get an education, they went into politics, they went into business, and working with many others, they helped to transform the social, political, economic landscape in Hawaii.
Part of their efforts led to Hawaii becoming a state in 1959. Lin's father, Walter Harakuji, was severely wounded in Italy, but survived and returned to Honolulu. He died in 2016.
It was only late in his life that he began to talk more about it. He was never boastful about his service, never. but I know that he was deeply proud of being associated with the 442nd.
Inspired by his service, Lynn helps keep the 442nd story alive as president of the Nisei Veterans Legacy. In addition to the 442nd and the 100th Battalion, she says the 1399 Engineer Battalion, which completed more than 50 major military projects on Oahu during the war, and the Military Intelligence Service also deserves recognition.
This was about 6,000 Nisei soldiers with good Japanese language skills. And so they were used in the Pacific War as interpreters, as interrogators, as translators, as eavesdroppers. They're credited with shortening the Pacific War by 2 years and saving thousands of lives.
The story of the 442nd won't soon be forgotten. When the $200 million U.S. Army National Museum opens near Washington, D.C., the Nisei will be well represented.
The grand opening of the museum was supposed to be June, but it's been postponed because of COVID. But I'm excited to tell you that there will be 4 galleries in that museum that will feature stories of the 100th, the 442nd, and the MIS.